TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom and good evening. I'm Mayan Hessen, and this is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, escalating violence along Israel's southern border with Gaza draws retaliatory strikes against terror infrastructure belonging to the Islamist Hamas organization. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlights that Israeli peace with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is fast approaching. Israeli President Isaac Herzog urges for national unity amid a deep domestic rift. Escalating tensions along Israel's southern border with the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip are seemingly intensifying. Palestinian Islamists, including operatives of separate terror groups, have staged violent riots along the Gaza-Israel security barrier, hurling improvised explosive devices, Molotov cocktails, and even opening sporadic fire towards IDF troops, who are working tirelessly to thwart any spillovers from taking place. Moreover, Hamas operatives have once again started utilizing incendiary balloons, which have already caused a number of brush fires throughout southern Israel. Meanwhile, in retaliatory response to the violent escalation along Israel's southern front, since Friday evening, IDF unmanned aerial vehicles have launched repeated aerial strikes against terror infrastructure belonging to Hamas in Gaza, including on Saturday, Sunday, and even on Monday, when Israelis commemorated the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur in Hebrew, during which Jews fast and pray for redemption. Prior to the Day of Atonement and before returning to Israel from the United States, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in an interview with Fox News, praised Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for his voiced optimism vis-à-vis normalization of the kingdom's relations with the State of Israel.
Well, I was delighted to hear what he had to say, and to borrow a phrase, I think we're getting closer to peace every day that passes.
When asked about whether Israel could agree to Saudi demands about granting concessions to the Palestinians, along other requests in exchange for the normalization agreement, Netanyahu highlighted that while the Palestinians should be part of a process for regional peace, they cannot have a veto over the process of Israel's integration into the region.
I think the Palestinians should be part of the process, but I don't think the Palestinians should have a veto over the process. And the reason we didn't have for a quarter century any new peace treaties after we made peace with Egypt and Jordan, we didn't have for 25 years a single new peace treaty, because everybody said, first you have to satisfy whatever the demands of the Palestinians are. You got to conclude a peace treaty with the Palestinians. Well, there was only one problem with that. The Palestinians don't want a peace with Israel, they want a peace instead of Israel. They don't want a state next to Israel, they want a state instead of Israel. So that wasn't going to get us anywhere. And I think it would be a grievous mistake to accept a Palestinian veto. They should be part of the process. They can benefit a great deal from the process. I'm willing to consider ways that they could benefit from the process without ever sacrificing our security or our national interests. But I think they can be part of the process, but not have a veto power over the process.
It is important to highlight that the newly appointed Saudi ambassador to Palestine arrived earlier today in the city of Ramallah to present his credentials to the Palestinian Authority chairman, Mahmoud Abbas.
I am happy that I am here, as agreed with His Excellency, in my country, Palestine, in Ramallah.
Ambassador El-Sudairi, who was also appointed by the Saudi Royal Court as Consultant General to Jerusalem, took the opportunity to express both historic and recent voiced efforts by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to realize the Palestinians' aspirations.
You all watched the interview with His Highness, Crown Prince, last week on Fox News, where he indicated his great interest in our Palestinian brothers in Palestine, and we wish them a better life. Also, His Highness the Minister of Foreign Affairs Prince Faisal bin Farhan a few days ago in New York talked about the importance of the Palestinian cause for Saudi Arabia on the basis of international legitimacy resolutions and the two-state solution and the establishment of the State of Palestine and its capital, East Jerusalem. The relations between Saudi Arabia and the State of Palestine is historical, which started since the era of the late King Abdul Aziz following his Children of Kings until today. The interest of the Crown Prince in the Palestinian cause is not new, but he is keen that the whole region and the world are stable and safe because this reflects positively on all the people in the world.
Despite a general Israeli consensus of support for establishing a peace accord with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, pessimism and critique seem to arise in relation to the government's intentions on all matters of national significance, including proactive aspirations for stability in the Middle East. This can be attributed to the domestic turmoil rooted in the relentless and long-standing opposition by a large part of the Israeli public to the government's intentions for judicial reform.
The peace with Saudi Arabia is very important and it's very blessed. We are looking forward to it. But the feeling over here in the streets and in the people, in the citizenship, that Netanyahu is using these talks in order to get a hold of the country much stronger and not really is wanting peace.
These remarks were made as tens of thousands of Israelis once again flooded the streets of Tel Aviv to voice their unyielding objection to any reform to the judiciary.
Because I have a commitment towards my parents, grandparents, and further up my ancestry, and because I have an obligation for my children and my grandchildren. And that's a good enough reason to come here for the 39th week in order to protect our country.
We are standing here and protesting here for the last 38 weeks, calling Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop what he's doing and to stop all the judicial laws that they're doing in the state.
Meanwhile, earlier today, Israeli President Isaac Herzog addressed the state ceremony in memory of the fallen during the Yom Kippur 1973 war, during which he highlighted that in the face of foreign adversaries, when the enemies of Israel sought its annihilation, the people of Israel joined forces to meet the threat together.
The Yom Kippur War was a war on a historic scale, the likes of which we have not known since the War of Independence, and of which we have not known since. One siren, one alarm, in the midst of the holiest of days, shattered the conception and forced an entire people to put aside all differences and come together in one fist against its enemies who rose up against it with the aim of annihilation.
President Herzog went on to stress the need to open Israel's heart to the prospects of peace, including, and in particularly, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
To give our minds and our eyes and our hearts to the possibilities of peace. Do not fall into illusions that there is no possibility of war, and at the same time, do not fall into illusions that there is no possibility of peace. In this context, I welcome from the bottom of my heart the possibility of a normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia. This could be a significant and important milestone in the historical process of the integration of the State of Israel in the Middle East, which actually began with that terrible war and continued with the peace agreement with Egypt a few years later. A peace agreement that the heroic fighters of the Yom Kippur War had a major contribution to its feasibility and realization. But the lessons don't end there.
The Israeli head of state voiced hope that the greatest threat to the security of the Jewish state would shortly be resolved.
The division, polarization, the never-ending dispute, they are a real danger to Israeli society and the security of the State of Israel. Israel's enemies speak out about this repeatedly and refer to the internal crisis within us as a prelude to the disintegration of the State of Israel, and even though they are completely wrong, we must come to our senses, lower our tone, listen, reach out, and end the internal crisis we are in through dialogue and agreement.
Also addressing Israel's top political and security brass at the state memorial ceremony for the fallen of 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu noted his recent visit to the border with Syria, where he evaluated today's looming challenges threatening the state of Israel.
I thought there about the importance of our national territories that are utilized as valuable buffer zones against attack of our enemies. I thought about the threats which loom from the other side of our border and from enemy states that threaten us with annihilation. As a central lesson from the Yom Kippur War, we do not belittle any threat.
Netanyahu went on to reiterate Jerusalem's unrelenting efforts to prevent Iran, which openly calls for Israel's annihilation, from acquiring nuclear weapons.
A few days ago, I told President Biden, and I emphasized this also at the UN General Assembly's plenum, that the world must prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. I clarified that we, Israel, will do everything to thwart it from happening. Thanks to the power, which we are cultivating unceasingly since the Yom Kippur War, we protect our land with determination. Thanks to the power, we deter our enemies. Thanks to the power, we achieve peace with our neighbors.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our work and would like to help keep us on air, please consider making a donation. You can do so by visiting our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Ayan Hessen. I'm wishing you a Shavua Mevorach and a good evening. I will see you again tomorrow at the same time.